This is Wendy Hernandez with Command the Courtroom. I'm really excited about the guest that we have today. So welcome. I want to introduce my guest. My wonderful guest is Rebecca Zung, and she's one of the top 1% of attorneys in the nation. She's been recognized by U.S. News and World Report as a best lawyer in America, as legal elite by Trend Magazine, and she's been recognized by her peers and the judiciary as an AB-rated attorney in family law. Rebecca is the author of best-selling books, Negotiate Like You M.A.T.E.R, The SureFire Method to Step Up and Win, forward by Robert Shapiro, very impressive, and Breaking Free, a step-by-step divorce guide for achieving emotional, physical, and spiritual freedom. So, Rebecca, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Rebecca, I've had several requests to have you on the show, and I was thrilled when I asked if you could come on that you responded immediately. It's wonderful. Every week I have lots of questions from my viewers. A lot of them are dealing with narcissists, and I understand this is one of your areas of expertise. Is it right?
Absolutely.
So, Rebecca, I have questions for you. And my first question is narcissists, are they born or are they formed in, as they're growing up and from society and their parents? And I've been curious about that.
Well, so, I'm not a psychologist. I just want to give that disclaimer, but I've been a high net worth family law litigator for over 20 years, and I've represented a lot of these personalities. And so what I've learned is from self-study and reading books and talking to people like Dr. Ramani and the people who are experts at this. And what I have learned is that it appears to be something that happens when you are a child. Something either traumatic happens or it could be potentially that they were overspoiled or whatever, but it does appear to be something that happens in childhood. They have a deep sense of insecurity. They have no sense of inner value. So they try to grasp as much sense of feeling of value from the external world as they possibly can. And it's really like a black hole. So they need endless amounts of what we call narcissistic supply, which is anything that feeds their ego.
So can you give some examples of the types of things that feeds the narcissist's ego? And maybe these are things that we shouldn't do.
Well, actually, you want to do some of it. And I talk a little bit about that in my webinar. But so narcissistic supply can be what I deem to be positive or negative. Those are probably not the technical terms for it. Narcissistic supply can be, what I call positive things, which are, look at my big house, look at my big job, look at my big bank account, look at the important friends that I have, look at the, this facade of the perfect family that I have, or whatever it is, the show of, things that could be perceived as good. Narcissistic supply can also come from what I call negative or bad things, which is when you're exerting control over another person or degrading them or devaluing them, or even worse, intimidation tactics, scare tactics, stalking, being abusive in any way. They get supply from that as well. They enjoy watching people squirm.
Do narcissists self-identify as narcissists? Do you know?
No.
They don't.
No. And in fact, Bree Bonche, who is a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of the World Narcissist Abuse Support Day, which is actually coming up on June 1st. And she brings together all the top narcissism experts in the world. She put together all these statistics, which basically said that, approximately 6% of the population of the world has narcissistic either personality disorder or narcissistic traits, which means you completely lack empathy for another person. But it's really hard to pin down real statistics because, narcissists are never going to go and actually, be truthful in a psychological session and allow themselves to be, tested or evaluated in any way. So, those numbers are they're just speculative, I would say.
Okay. So Is it possible to negotiate with a narcissist? Can that
Oh,
happen?
yeah.
Is
It
it?
is. Well, I have a whole program that it's called Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist on how you can negotiate with a narcissist, but it is extremely difficult. Thing is, narcissists have been honing their craft of manipulation their entire lives, and they don't know anything else other than to manipulate, control, degrade, devalue. They go through these different stages of love bomb, devalue, and discard. And so, the reasonable person or the person who is trying to get out of a relationship with a narcissist, which is normally an empath or an empathic person, because there's a symbiotic relationship between empaths and narcissists, they have no idea what the hell they're walking into. And I tell people all the time, if you walk into a dispute resolution conversation with a narcissist and you haven't fully prepared yourself, you are just like a shark. You're feeding yourself to the shark. You will not prevail because the narcissist has a plan. The narcissist plan is to take you down. And so, they use the court system as their sword. They lie about everything. They obstruct on every single level. They, any even mandatory financial disclosure, they don't produce. They file motions over every single little thing they possibly can. They twist every single email, every single text. They try to get their flying monkeys all lined up. So they've got a full-on plan. So if you don't have a plan back, you're going to be eaten alive. So,
Yeah.
so it's strategy. So my SLA or negotiation stands for having a super strong strategy, creating invincible leverage, anticipating what the narcissist is going to do and being 2 steps ahead of them, and focusing on you and your case. That's what SLA stands for.
Okay. Yep. It's great. That's a great acronym. And so it's possible then, are you saying it's possible then to actually resolve a case with a narcissist outside of court? Because my experience, because I've dealt with narcissists, both parties and also opposing attorneys and judges, often it's difficult to resolve a case outside of court. Oftentimes it seems like it's a war of attrition, financial attrition, emotional attrition. And the narcissists aren't happy until they bleed the person dry financially, the other party, or emotionally, and they just give up. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's 100% true. But because remember, they're getting supply from that whole crazy process. I mean, even if they're spending their own money, the fact that they're making you suffer, they get supply from that. So where people mess up and they don't think about how to handle negotiation is they focus on the wrong things, and you have to figure out what the narcissist's main source of supply is, and then threaten that. And if they are going to look bad, I mean, that's one of the main sources of supply for a narcissist is they want to look like they're the good one. They want to look like they want to be respected by people they respect, and they respect judges. They certainly don't want to look bad in front of a judge. And, and they don't want to look bad in front of mediators and lawyers too. I mean, they take painstaking efforts to make sure that you're the one that looks like the crazy person and they're the reasonable one. And so, figuring out what the leverage is, having a strategy on how to get there, and then figuring out what the leverage is, and then do not give it away too early. You have to be ready to present it like you're almost like pouncing. It's almost like building a fence around them while they don't even realize it's being built.
Ah, yeah, that's amazing. That's really good. So some of the things that drive the narcissist are looking good.
Mm-hmm.
And then would power be one of those?
Oh, yeah, of course.
What other examples can you give that are potentially areas that are leverage areas for the narcissist?
Well, it's something that what I say is leverage could be all sorts of different things. This is the one thing that people, that there's like kind of a myth around leverage, because, when I say leverage, first of all, number one, people say, oh, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. I think, okay, if you don't want to fight and you have a narcissist on the other side, it sounds counterintuitive, but you have to have leverage. Otherwise, you're never like getting to even just back to the middle, back to what the law provides. So, but leverage can be all sorts of different things. Inside of my program, I give like 30 different examples, but leverage could be a smoking gun. Like, I had a case one time where I had a doctor who had a very, well-known, good reputation in the community. He contracted herpes. He knew he had it. He was diagnosed with it. He gave it to his wife. So we actually filed a civil battery claim against him for that. And, that was about ready to go to court, and all that's going to come out. And it's, courts are public forums. That's a great piece of leverage, but not everybody has like that smoking gun like that. Leverage can be an accumulation of things that you don't even realize is leverage until you've taken a look at all your documentation. So, for example, it could be, if there was a temporary parenting plan in place and, the narcissist changed the parenting plan like 30 times or showed up like late every single time, or, and then once you put it together in the form of a summary exhibit that you're planning to use at trial, and they get a whiff of, what you're about to show the judge, that's a great piece of leverage. And then when you combine that with, and here's a summary of all the times that they lied, and here's a summary of all the times that they didn't pay child support on time, and here's a summary of, and so when you look at the body of it and you go, wow, that's a lot of leverage, whereas one thing, they might not care like that they changed the schedule 50 times. I don't care. Go ahead, show the judge. But then when they see all the other things, leverage could be witnesses that they don't want to testify. It could be that they don't want their employer to know certain things about what's going on in their lives. But you always have to think about it from the point of view of what's going to affect them.
So, and what I'm hearing you say that, leverage may not be one thing, it may be a totality of the circumstances.
Correct.
Okay. And
more often than not, that's what it is.
Okay. All right. That makes sense to me, especially in these custody cases, which, I deal a lot in the custody cases, and we talk about best interest factors. And often people come to me and they say, well, my ex or soon to be ex did this one thing, and I think that's the smoking gun. But my thought is it's usually not just the one thing. It is usually an accumulation of a lot of things that happen over time.
Yeah, especially custody cases, because they're so fact driven. And, that's why they get very expensive, because it's not like, with child support guidelines, you just input the incomes and you figure out what the child support is. It's pretty easy once you know what the incomes are to input in there. But with custody, as you said, when you're looking at best interests, it's almost like trying to catch a wave and pin it down. What does that mean exactly? Mm-hmm. And so you have to prove, who's the better parent, who's the parent that's going to be more likely to, foster a relationship between the other parent and the child, and, all the little things that they look at. Every state has their own best interest statute, but, I tell people start with the statute, go and see what the factors are, and just start building, facts that support each one of those factors.
So, okay. So since we're talking about custody, let's switch for a minute and let's move from negotiating for a minute to co-parenting with a narcissist. Is it possible to co-parent with a narcissist?
I would say that's kind of like a misnomer, because, anything with a narcissist is kind of like, not really. I mean, Dr. Ramani says it's like a single parenting with an elephant on your back. It's almost impossible. But yeah, it's just the same. It's the same principle. You have to kind of box them in and squeeze them in a way that they have no room. They're still going to look for it. It doesn't mean that they're not going to continue to be their narky selves. They will. I had an agreement with, I was representing the ex-husband, and the ex-wife was the one that was the narcissist. And she just constantly could not help herself and trying to turn the school against him and all these things and acting unilaterally. And so we had this language put together in the agreement that modified the final judgment, that basically said, if she does anything unilateral again, he's going to get automatic decision-making authority in that area, and she's going to have to pay his fees. And, the day after it was signed by the judge, she goes to the school and signs off on an individualized education plan that had stuff in there that the husband didn't want. I mean, the day after.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
I mean, but at least then he had teeth to go back and do something about it.
Right. How did you get the narc to sign such an agreement? How did
Big time leverage.
Okay. I was going to say.
That was a huge, it's probably too long of a story to tell here in this forum, but she was used to being able to do whatever the hell she wanted, and she had turned the school against him and doctors against him and did all these things, and he filed lawsuits, and and we did all kinds of things. I mean, we simultaneously filed a child support reduction action, and we were looking into her finances, and talking about subpoenaing her dad because her dad was actually supporting her and she was saying she couldn't work. So we were looking at vocational evaluations. I mean, there's a whole thing that went into that. So this is what I teach people how to do in my program, actually, is build that.
So I want, as we get close to the end, I want you to share a ton about your program so people can take advantage of that.
If there's not specific language in an order, then they're going to go for whatever the gray area is. I mean, even if there is specific language, they may not abide by it. I mean, that's the thing that people can't believe. It's like they ignore court orders all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then people will say, how are they getting away with this? And I always say, there's not these court fairies that live in people's living rooms that as soon as somebody messes up, they jump out and go, hey, you can't do that. I mean, how are they getting away with it? Because they do, unless somebody files a motion and sets it for hearing. And the only person who has any power to force someone to do something is the judge. That's it.
So my understanding and my experience has been limited with narcissists, but my understanding is that I know. I'm dealing with some right now, unfortunately. My understanding is that one of the characteristics is that they can be extremely charming,
mm-hmm.
and, get people ingratiate, themselves and things like that. And, what happens if you have a judge who is falling for all of this, this persona, this public persona and this race, and the judge is kind of bought into what they're saying? What are your thoughts on that? How do you combat that?
I've seen it happen. I mean, especially covert narcissists. I mean, they're the worst ones because they're so good at hiding their narcissism. I mean, they usually only expose who they really are to their target and no one else. And to the world, they're lawyers and psychologists and clergy and doctors, and they put themselves in these positions of respect, and they come across like they're such good people, and they may even tell people that they're so spiritual or whatever. And so it can be difficult. But the one thing I can definitely say is that, first of all, you never use the word narcissist in court ever. Because if you use the word narcissist, you've completely lost your credibility. Even if that's what they are, you just can't use that word. But you can show their bad behavior, in the context of the statute. Your Honor, you are tasked with doing what's in the best interest of the child. And here are the ways that this person is acting contrary to the child's best interests. And then you present that evidence in that way.
So, Rebecca, do you have the experience? Because I agree with you. If a narcissist is doing something wrong, then you need to file a motion, some sort of motion, to try to get the judge's help. And what I have seen in these cases is that sometimes there's so much, quote, bad behavior that motion after motion after motion is filed, which often leads to fatigue or frustration on the part of the judge. And the judge gets to the point of saying, hey, like you guys, like I don't want to see you anymore, or work it out, or the person filing motions, you're being ridiculous. How do you deal with that? Have you seen that?
Yeah, but it comes in the form of the argument to the judge and say, Your Honor, we don't want to have to keep filing these motions, but they're the ones that aren't, they're ignoring the court orders. They're not producing the discovery that they're supposed to. They're not abiding by the parenting plan. They're not paying the support that they're supposed to be paying, or whatever it is that is the problem. I mean, you just have to keep pushing and telling the judge that's the problem. The problem's over there. Yep. We don't want to have to, and then it's on you to show the judge, look, here's my correspondence where I tried to resolve this issue. Here's where I said, please provide the discovery that is missing. Mandatory disclosure is, 12 months of credit card statements or whatever it is. And, they conveniently left out July and September. Wonder why? Because the guy bought the girlfriend, the Louis Vuitton bag or something on that one, probably, I mean.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So what can parents who are dealing with a narcissist do to protect themselves when they are trying to parent? We won't say co-parent because that doesn't happen, right?
I tell people don't move out of the house unless you have a temporary parenting plan in place that's super specific. And when I say specific, I mean like, okay, you're going to have the kids on Mondays and Tuesdays from 8 a.m. to, whatever period of time. And how are you exchanging the child? Is it at school? Is it after school? Is it you're picking up from school? Is it if there's no school, where is the exchange taking place? Who is picking up from who? As specific as possible, because wherever that gray area is, that's where they're going to be a problem. And make sure right from the get-go, I would put in that temporary parenting plan that you're using some sort of court-appointed app. Our Family Wizard, FAIR, Talking Parents, there's several of them out there now. Our Family Wizard was the only one for a long time, but there's a few now. And they're pretty affordable. Most of them are like $100 a year. And it's definitely worth it because most of them have the ability to where you can download the texts and use them as trial exhibits, and they're less likely to be abusive in a court-appointed app that everyone can read.
So if we're not supposed to use the word narcissist with the judge, how can we educate our judges? How can my clients and the people on this live stream show the judges the behavior, but also educate them about the narcissist without using the N-word?
Yeah, so depending on what it is that you want from the judge, you're just going to prove that that person isn't measuring up to whatever that is. So let me give you an example. So if you have like a best interest is an easy one because everyone understands that. So, within the statute in your state, there's going to be a number of factors that the court has to consider for best interest. So you're just going to put together documents, evidence, witnesses, exhibits, summaries, all of that says, here's how this person is not acting in the child's best interests. Because the judge has to make rulings based on taking facts and applying them to the law. And so you just have to present it all in a way that it's clearly an error as a matter of law if they don't rule in your favor. Being a narcissist is not against the law.
That sucks.
Should be. But unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah.
Not yet, anyway.
That's funny. And so, what I hear you saying is, and I think you may have said it before during this live stream, is just really being prepared, getting your stuff together, getting your evidence together, organizing it, understanding it. So is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, yes, but being prepared in a very super specific way. Yeah.
Okay. That's relevant to your case?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Got it. So let's get back to your S.L.A.Y strategy, leverage.
Anticipating what the narcissist is going to do and being 2 steps ahead of them, and
Okay.
focusing on you and your case. And the anticipation factor is in a number of different ways. One is inside of my program, I actually walk people through checklists to help them figure out what kind of narcissist they're dealing with, whether it's covert, grandiose, or malignant, and so that they can be prepared for the kinds of things that they will be doing, depending on what kind of narcissist they are. And then I help them build a strategy and an overall goal, vision, and an action plan, and then figure out what the leverage is. And then anticipating is, okay, what kind of narcissist do we have here? But then also, what arguments are they going to be making, and being ready to refute them. It's always so much of a stronger position to say, and I'm expecting that you are going to argue that blah, blah, blah. Well, here's my response to that. And it takes all the wind right out of their sails. And then focusing on you and your case. I mean, I go through your case first, meaning that the thing about when you're litigating with a narcissist is that it's just so easy to constantly get focused and caught up on how bad they're behaving, and, oh, look at what they're doing, and, oh my God, they attacked me at school in front of all the parents, and, said this to me, or all the things that narcissists do. And you then forget to prepare your own case. And, I always tell people that the best football teams don't just have a good defense. They just, you have to have an offense or no one's scoring any points. And that's a really, really huge mistake that I see lawyers make. And, and you have to be prepared. And the thing is, Wendy, you're a lawyer, that you need the clients to bring you the information. You can't ESP, subliminally know what text messages are on their phone, or what photos they may have, or what Facebook posts there might have been, or what witnesses there might be, and so that's why I created the program, because I wanted people to be able to put this all together so that they could take it to their lawyer and help them. I just had one guy who took the program say, my lawyer was expecting a 3-hour meeting. We were in and out in 25 minutes. And he was like astonished, because I told him, here's what you need. This is it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
exactly.
That's great.
I can just tell you that inside of my program, I do teach people how I find good lawyers, which is basically, to look at sites like the Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers or Martindale-Hubbell or places like that, just to start to vet them. And then inside of my program, I do have a bonus questionnaire that I provide for people so that they can take those questions to the lawyer and vet the lawyer. Because I'll tell you that, most lawyers do not know what they're getting into. They have no idea how to deal with narcissists at all. So
Okay.
you want to take those questions with you so that you can vet the attorneys and at least feel like you have somebody who will be on your side and ready to go.
Is it good to try to come to an agreement, or is it better to never enter into an agreement with a narc?
Oh, no, you want to enter into an agreement, but you want to be, don't go back and forth with letters between attorneys, because that's just a big fat waste of time and money. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah. It's just, you need to have enough leverage ready to go, and then set it for mediation with a super strong mediator, and then get them to sign the damn thing before they walk out of the building that night. It's very common with narcissists. That's why I always tell, a lot of mothers especially, they don't want to give up their time sharing. But, if you're going into a temporary parenting plan, it's always good to give them enough rope to hang themselves, because they will not take their time. And then when you go into that final hearing or that trial, you'll be ready to show how many times they didn't take their time sharing. And that'll be super powerful.
I've had this experience where the narcissist is saying, yes, 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 I want to mediate. But then they start throwing up these obstacles or roadblocks to mediation. Is it a waste of time and money and attorney's fees to get to mediation in that point? Or, is it worth it?
If you have enough leverage, then it's always better to mediate and resolve it in mediation if you can, just because it's not appealable. If you settle in mediation, if you go to trial, and even if you win 100% of everything that you want, they can appeal it. And then if they file a motion to stay the judgment, then, you're still in limbo land for, who knows how long while the appeal is running. So I always say it's better to settle in mediation if you can, but there's no way that they're going to settle in mediation unless they feel threatened enough in some way.
Let's talk about boundaries. Can you talk about boundaries and then their importance with a narcissist?
It's like key, and I will say I do a free webinar, and if you go to my website, which is just RebeccaZung.com, there's a link there to sign up for it if they want to, but it's a 3 must-have secrets to communicating with a narcissist, and boundaries is one of my secrets, actually, because by not respecting your boundaries, they get supply from that. It's a form of control. And what a covert narcissist will do, for example, is that they're so cunning. I mean, they'll tie up I'm doing something nice for you in with watch me cross this boundary. I've heard that during this COVID thing that an ex-husband left like a care package at the ex-wife's home with, all these supplies for the house, which was, a message to her that I know where you live. But yet he did something nice. And that's what, and so, if you go around to, he left a care package, and so coverts are really good at wrapping their insidious behavior with something that looks good on the outside. And it just like the hairs go up on the back of your neck and you feel sick inside because it's a form of control.
On the subject of boundaries, I've had clients tell me, and I've heard stories of clients receiving just email after email after email from the narcissist, combined with text messages and voice messages. And
that's why you have to have one form of communication, just one.
Okay.
And it should not be text, and it should not be over the phone, and it should not be in person. It should be a court-approved app or email. That's it, because those are the best forms of trial exhibits.
So you were saying that one form of communication should be a court-appointed app, and then I heard exhibits. That's
email, because those are the best for trial exhibits.
Okay, got it. I once had a client lose custody of his children because he was so overwhelmed with the number of emails that his ex, who he believed was a narcissist, he got overwhelmed and he just stopped responding. Do you think people should be responding to every email that they get from the narcissist?
So what I say is, just the facts. So, because what they'll do is they'll send this whole massive long tirade of crap, where you have to hit the little more button to see the rest of the freaking message or whatever. And, but somewhere deep in there, it might be one thing that you need to respond to, like, what time do you want to pick up Johnny on Wednesday? And so the way I tell people to respond to that is something very, like, I'm in receipt of your message. I disagree and deny your allegations, and you can pick up Johnny at 3 p.m. on Wednesday.
Gigi is saying Bill Eddy, brief, informative, friendly, and firm.
Bill Eddy is awesome. I've interviewed him before.
And then Jules Verone is saying only essential issues.
Yeah, so just the facts, don't overshare, don't justify, don't defend. And by the way, I do, and if it's okay if I say, I have a YouTube channel of my own, Rebecca Zung, and please, come, subscribe, watch my videos. I have so much information on there, all on this stuff.
Yes. I've been binge watching your YouTube video. It's been helpful to me. So that's awesome.
Good. Okay.
It's really good. So everybody, if you haven't already subscribed to Rebecca, subscribe now. In fact, a few of my viewers are the ones who said, have Rebecca on, including a client, and a current client of mine did as well. So,
one of the problems with narcissists, is that if you're a victim of a narcissist, you're so traumatized, you're so victimized, you feel so abused, feel so used. Like so many people feel like they've lost their voice, or like they're just like everyone is going to believe everything the narcissist says and does, and they're going to get away with their lies and all of that. And so you really want somebody that you feel like has your back, that believing you and has compassion for you and has empathy for you and is there, I mean, yeah, you don't want to have to be like 24/7 or whatever, but like with my clients who need a lot of time with me, what I would say is, okay, we're going to set a call every day for 4:00. Back when I was practicing full on, I would say, okay, right now during this period of time when you need to talk to me, it sounds like every day, let's just all throughout the day, you pull together all your questions, and we're going to have a standing call at 4:00 every day. And you're going to shoot me all your questions. And that way you don't feel stressed because you've got me at 4:00. You're my full attention at that point, rather than send me 15 emails throughout the day. And it's more cost effective that way anyway. So, have a conversation with your lawyer, like, okay, what's going to be the best way for me to communicate with you and feel heard? Because, narcissistic victims, they don't feel heard. And so it's really, really important that you feel heard with your lawyer.
Perfect. And if somebody's not feeling heard by their lawyer, then your advice would be
lawyer.
Yep, agreed.
One. Yeah.
Agreed 100%. Okay. All right. So let's talk about your program. Tell everybody what it's about and how it can help them.
Yeah. So it's slayyournegotiation.com, which I mentioned, and it's at, you can go to my website, which is RebeccaZung.com, and it's on there, or you can just go to slayyournegotiation.com. It's a 4-hour crash course. It's the only one that I'm aware of that's developed by a top 1% attorney who has a deep understanding of the psyche of narcissists. And I take people step by step through the program. It includes a 45-page workbook and outline. All the modules are there. So as soon as they invest and hit that button, they get the whole thing right there. It has sample emails. It has the one piece of collateral in there that I think is amazing is 50 key phrases for disarming a narcissist. So there's actually 50 phrases on there of like, that you can work into conversations, emails, texts, all sorts of things. Like when you're feeling paralyzed about what to say, you can just go right to that. There's a whole checklist in there about how narcissists behave, the 3 different types of narcissists, how they behave in divorce, how to build a strategy, the different types of leverage, how to take your particular case and put it together. It's exactly the methodology that I would use if you came to me and hired me, but it's much more affordable. And by the way, if you hit PayPal on your way out, you can choose a 6-month same as cash option. And if you use the code SLAY200, you get $200 off.
Oh, you guys. Okay. So I know that Marciel is interested. So get that $200 off, Marciel. Awesome. Thank you. So that's really great, Rebecca. So people can find you at RebeccaZung.com and on your YouTube channel.
Yes.
Okay.
And those are the 2 main places. I do have a podcast as well, but mostly my podcast is a rebroadcast of a lot of what I do on my YouTube channels.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much for being with us tonight and shedding light on this issue. And I hope that you go and follow Rebecca on YouTube and check out her program. And she can help you with all those questions that you have every week about dealing with a narcissist in your life. So thank you, Rebecca. And I hope to have you
for having me.
Of course. Hopefully we can have you back again sometime.
Thank you so much. I'd love it.
Thank you. Okay, you guys. So I love you. Remember to hit like. And if you're new to Command the Courtroom, subscribe to Command the Courtroom. And I will be back next Monday with something interesting. So have a good night and get out there and command the courtroom, you guys. Bye.